Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good, thank you very much. You might want to do a cell phone check and see if your cell phone is in silent mode. Om Jnana Timirantasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Vayam Rupa Kadavayam Tadati Shabadatikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vajari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. I was asked to talk about real freedom, rather expansive topic, political freedom, moral freedom, intellectual freedom, but from the Bhagavad Gita it's understood that our sense of freedom is overdone. That is, that we don't have the seemingly limitless freedom that we suppose. When was the last time any of you ever flew without an airplane? Right? We're restricted. Any sparrow can fly, but we're restricted. We can't do that. And every creature and every human being is restricted by the particular embodiment that they've received. The body that we have, like a child, is not going to be able to do what an adult can do because the body restricts them. A skinny person like me was never going to be a heavyweight wrestler. So the body imposes certain limits on us, doesn't it? Apart from the sort of obvious restrictions, the Bhagavad Gita says this is pinging a little bit, which means the volume is a little too high, I think. Hare Krishna. Let's see what happens. The Bhagavad Gita says that we're colored by a mixture of three different qualities that we pick up in the course of our existence. They're sometimes called modes of nature, sometimes qualities. The Sanskrit is gunas. Switching mics, are we? Yeah. Okay. Shall I read something? Yeah. This is something I wrote. Even the things we take for granted, we are doing, the Gita says. Those things are in fact carried out by the machinery of nature. Though we believe we act because we want to, in fact we act because we're compelled to. We eat, we sleep, we love, we defend ourselves, because the bodies we live in tell us
we must, and give us no choice but to obey. We're strapped to the machinery. And so the acts we think we perform are in fact carried out by the force of the modes of nature, the qualities of nature. We imagine that we're doing everything independently, but we're actually under control. We're actually under control. Those modes, we talk about them elsewhere. They're called goodness, passion, and ignorance. The person in goodness acts calmly, thoughtfully. The person charged with passion strives, endeavors, driven by ambitions and yearnings. And a person steeped in ignorance declines into lethargy, foolishness, and delusions. The Vedic literature says that a living being, though by nature pure, becomes colored by these three qualities, as pure water might be colored by minerals with which it comes in touch. So we see this, that we become, we see people who are like just dull, boozed out, dejected, maybe crazy, mad. These are all signs of ignorance. And then we see people who are just like driven by their desires. They're controlled by passion. Your Shakespeare said, give me that man who is not, give me that man that is not passion's slave, and I will wear him in my heart of hearts. So we see that there are people who are just, they can't stop. They're slaves to passion. And goodness is better. It's conducive to knowledge, thoughtfulness, peacefulness. But even goodness puts us under some restrictions. It binds us to a feeling of being, that everything is okay, a feeling that we're happy because we have knowledge. And so subtly, even a person in the highest quality, goodness, is under a kind of control. So the Bhagavad Gita says that all of us are controlled in this way. And therefore if we want real freedom, then we need to rise above these qualities. Nistragunya of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Rise above these three qualities. That will actually free us. It won't make us free to fly without airplanes, but it will purify our consciousness so that we come to the platform of spiritual realization and we identify ourselves not as these restricted bodies, but as spiritual living beings who have the qualities of eternity, of pure knowledge, and of pure happiness. These are the qualities of what we call Shuddha Sattva, or pure goodness. There's goodness, as there's passion and ignorance, but then there's pure goodness. So that pure goodness platform is the platform of spiritual realization. And that's the platform on which this chanting, or from which this chanting descends. This Hare Krishna sound vibration is a sound that puts us in touch with transcendence. And so it revives our true nature. We're looking for freedom. We're looking for happiness. We're looking for permanence. But we don't find it anywhere in this world. The world is so made that wherever we go, there'll be so many problems and so many restrictions. We bring them with us because I'll bring my passion with me, I'll bring my ignorance with me, I'll bring my goodness with me wherever I go. It's said, there's a Bengali proverb that if you take a grinder and bring it to heaven, what will it do? It'll grind. So our quality, or elsewhere it said, wherever you go, you bring your forehead with you. So our nature stays with us. The nature, not our real nature, that stays with us too. There's our real nature, and then there's these qualities that we pick up from, you can say, from the environment. The qualities of passion, the qualities of ignorance, the quality of material goodness. But we can leave those material qualities behind by realizing our true identity as spiritual living beings. That's the statement of the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to stop here, I think, and see if there's some questions, rather than sort of talk in the dark and not know exactly what lands where and what sort of questions you might have about what. Let's see how we go, if there's some questions here. Yes?
Thank you so much, Bobby, for your talk and presence. What amazes me is, after so many years of being in Bhakti Yoga, you still exploring and really going deeper and deeper into one text. Something that I'd like to know is, what is it that still baffles you about this text, Bhagavad Gita? What is it that you still cannot grab, like you can't understand it? Is there something like that?
Let's see. There's some things that are deliberately not understandable. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, what is that? Let's see. Oh, you have my little red thing with the Bhagavad Gita. Antasbahir Chabhutanam. Yes, Krishna says, I'm within everything, and I'm without. I'm outside everything. He says all living beings are within me, and but I'm not in them. And then he says, but everything is resting on me, but everything's not resting on me. So these are deliberately contradictory. We're not going to understand these things by putting them in our calculating machine and looking at the readout. It deliberately forces us to go beyond material thinking. Is that okay for an answer?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is, my wife, thank you so much for being here. What is non-material thinking?
Non-material thinking means it doesn't mean that we won't see the walls, we won't see the floor, we'll be in some kind of never land. But it means that we see everything in relationship to spirit. It means we see everything in relationship to spirit. Now, let's start practically. You ask me who I am. I say I'm John Smith, and this is my brother George, and this is my mom, this is my dad, these are my 3 sons, this is my country, United States of America, and I'm 74, and so on. So I give you all sorts of answers in relationship to this body. Because it's the body that was born in America that makes me American, and I was born Smith, so now I'm Smith. And this other guy who was born of the same parents, he's my brother. And these other people who were born of me, they're my sons. And and so on. All in relationship to the body. And what is the body? It's matter. Right? I mean, you could break it down into its chemical constituents or what have you. It's matter, it's stuff. It's not really different from the microphone stand. And when consciousness leaves the body, then it's really just stuff. Stuff we want to get rid of, in fact. So it's matter. But I'm not matter. Aham Brahmasmi, I'm consciousness. If you look within yourself, the self that's permanently there is your consciousness. You had a child's body, which is gone. You have a young person's body, which will be gone. You'll have an old person's body, but you'll be the same person. I'm in my 70s. I remember when I was like 12 and I was climbing on roofs and doing all sorts of mischief and that sort of thing. I remember when I was in my 30s, although the body has changed. When I get up tomorrow, the body I have will be different from the one I have today. Different cells will have replaced other cells. Things will have changed. It'll look the same, but it'll be different. If you come back after a year, it'll look more different. The body is in flux. The body's in flux. But consciousness remains the same. I'm not going to get up tomorrow morning and remember and have your memories. I'll have my own memories. Because I'm one conscious living being, you're another conscious living being. So that spark of consciousness is what we mean by spirit. You can call it spirit, you can call it Atma, you can call it soul, you can call it whatever Alma, you can call it whatever you want. But there it is, a spark of consciousness. So that spark of consciousness is spiritual, and spiritual vision or non-material vision means that I identify myself with that spark of consciousness, not with the body. My spiritual master used to say quite often, we're not this body. I'm thinking I'm this body. I'm thinking I'm American, old or young, or thin or fat, or this or that. But I'm not. That's material vision. And spiritual vision is to see that I'm a spark of consciousness. And the higher spiritual vision is to see that I'm part of a higher consciousness. Although I'm consciousness, I'm not the supreme consciousness. Consciousness can move things. Because I'm conscious, I can say I want to pick up this book, and I pick it up. I want to stack some books together, and so I stack the books together. Consciousness moves matter around. Little sparks of consciousness build cities, anthills, or what have you. But we don't build the universe. You know, I might build a house, but I don't build a galaxy. That requires a more expansive consciousness. Right? Or from one point of view, I build a little house, but there's a developer who builds a whole housing project, and then someone else who builds something bigger. Finally, when you come to the highest stage of the ability to do such things, then you're in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. So Bhakti Yoga means that the individual consciousness comes in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. So that's the higher stage of non-material vision. Is that okay?
Beyond okay.
Hey, I was curious on your opinion on free will, and so this whole idea of,
You want my opinion on free will and
yeah, and just where you stand on whether we live in a world that is, we are controlled by greater forces, or whether there is free will.
we have free will, but tiny. We may think that we have unlimited freedom. Our free will is very tiny, in part in part because we're controlled by those qualities. But even if I weren't controlled by those qualities, my free will is still tiny, because I'm tiny. I'm tiny. Coming back to the idea of individual consciousness and supreme consciousness, the difference is that the supreme consciousness is unlimited, and the individual small consciousness is very tiny. So, being tiny, I can only do so much. I can't construct galaxies, I can't move the sun and moon along, I can't do all those things. Very small. And everything else about me is small. Let's pick an example. My knowledge is small. I may go beyond the realm of material knowledge, but still my knowledge will be small. I don't know the past and the future, and some of the things I don't know. Can't know. So, to the point, my free will is also small. I have it, but it's not what I think it is. It's not whatever I want I can do. It's very small. And so much so that finally what it comes down to is I can turn toward matter or I can turn toward spirit. That's you could say, the essential freedom that I have. If I turn toward matter, my freedom is further curtailed because I'm, as I read here, strapped to the machinery. I can only do what the machinery lets me to do or demands that I do. And if I turn toward spirit, I have so many possibilities. So that's the essence of free will. And the problem of material existence is misuse of free will. When I turn toward matter and try to control matter, that's the material project. By somehow manipulating material things or material forces, material circumstances, I'll achieve happiness, I'll achieve whatever it is I will achieve. We want to exploit matter individually or corporately. We want to get the better of matter. And that doesn't work. But if we align ourselves with spirit, or connect ourselves in devotion to the Supreme Spirit, or unlimited consciousness, then we're in our natural and happy condition. That's the essence of free will. Do I want to turn toward the darkness or turn toward the light? Okay. Yes?
80s and then now as well. What are your thoughts on what technology could be used for as a, and what it is used for? How can we make sure that the technology that we use in the world, in the material world, serves our spiritual goals?
Mm. We've seen the rise of technology. How do we ensure that it's used for spiritual goals? How do we do that? The example that my spiritual master consistently gave, because he was always speaking with a microphone, was that the microphone could be used for Krishna. I can use the microphone for something else, or what have you, and then it's material. I use it for making money. I use it for bringing about political revolution. I use it for some material purpose, higher or lower. But when I use it for Krishna, the microphone becomes spiritualized. It's now used in relationship to spirit. It's not exactly spirit, it remains a material microphone. But now it's connected in service to the Supreme. So you can do that with anything technological. You can do that with a supercomputer, you can do that with artificial intelligence, you can do that with anything. And that purifies the technology. Otherwise, if we use it any other way, technology will whip us. I forget whether it was Emerson or Thoreau, he observed things are in the saddle and ride mankind. Things are in the saddle. Now our things are more, they've gone digital, but they're still riding us. We could go into all sorts of discussions of the troubles that technology brings upon us, but you all know. You all know. You get some convenience and then so much trouble. Technology is always like that. But when we use it in bhakti, in service to the Supreme, then it becomes spiritualized. Is that okay? Yes.
Hi, thanks for being here. If you look back throughout your journey, which were the key points or experiences or realizations that made you lose any type of doubt that soul, spirit, whatever we name it, exists, and it's not just a story that we as humans create to feel better?
What kind of experiences did I have?
Or realizations
Or realizations?
or anything.
Or anything?
That took the
Now
doubt
I have
away.
free scope. That made me convinced that matter and spirit were different.
And not actually,
Okay.
whether actually,
That spirit is not just a fairy story, that it actually exists. Well, there's two things. One is experiential and the other is philosophical. On the philosophical side, by hearing from my spiritual master, by hearing from the Bhagavad Gita, I gradually said, yeah, that's right. There are, especially if you read the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives a whole argument to establish that spirit, the existence of spirit. My spiritual master gave a very simple argument. What's the difference between a living body and a dead body? In the dead body, all the elements are there. But what's different? He gave that. He was speaking at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he asked the students that question. And we see that the difference is consciousness. The dead body has all the elements, but consciousness is gone. And without consciousness, it's just a corpse. And simple, practical thing. Anyone who's had a pet that's died or seen any creature that's died, the machine is still there. And in theory, you could fix it. But even if you fixed it, consciousness wouldn't spring back. So this consciousness can be, philosophically, we can discriminate. By discrimination, by sorting things out, we see that consciousness has a different set of qualities than matter, than the body. That's philosophical. And there's a lot more where that came from. It's quickly summarized. Experientially, chanting Hare Krishna. My experience is that by chanting Hare Krishna, these theoretical propositions become realized. That the mind becomes more clear, and we see these things. Just if my glasses were fogged over, I just wouldn't see things clearly. But when the glasses are cleaned, then I can see. It's everything, you're there, everything's there. But on fog, I can't see. And when there's clarity, I can see. So my experience was that by chanting Hare Krishna, it works. Our consciousness does become purified. And then these theoretical teachings, which remain, well, that's a doctrine, that's a teaching, they become something that we can realize, that becomes factual for us. Is that okay? It's okay, that sounded pretty... What's the doubt that's still there? What more do you want to know?
And what the new type of clarity, the new lens, is again another type of distortion. It's just one that we choose that we feel better about it.
How do we know that it's not just another distortion? That we say, okay, my glasses are clean, but really it's just another sort of I've switched fairy stories. I had one and now I have another. How do we know? Well, being imperfect, being fallible, I don't think I could declare, well, because by the perfection I achieved, I realized that this was the only possible truth, and that I could demonstrate it to anyone beyond any. It's maybe not achievable. But let's just do a simple thing. Give me a better idea, or show me the defect. Show me where I'm wrong. You show me how matter and consciousness are really the same. You show me how consciousness somehow arises from matter. There's a sort of scientific narrative that would claim that it does, but it's got holes in it all over the place. Starting with, it can't really show how consciousness comes from matter. It only posits that it does. It only claims that it does. And in fact, as we've come along, we see that there are philosophers and scientists who are sort of advancing the same understanding that's given in Bhagavad Gita. They themselves are questioning this notion that consciousness could somehow arise from matter. So, all right, theoretically, as for the sake of argument, maybe it's just another fairy story. Find the defect in it, or show me something better. Is that okay? Thank you. Good, that was more convincing. Yes.
Is there any?
Someone in the back.
Someone, me?
You're
Right.
really in the back, I can't see you.
Right, I have a practical question, and it's, you mentioned before the word goodness.
Yes.
Right, and favorite subject of mine. So, in relation to goodness, is the alternative to goodness, or the only alternative, is it badness, or is it a sort of like a rainbow of possibilities?
Okay, we talked about goodness. Is the alternative to goodness, is the only alternative to goodness badness? Or is there a rainbow of possibilities?
Yes, and because you also talk about free will,
Yeah.
are we in control?
Yeah. The alternative to goodness is what's called pure goodness. The idea is that goodness in this world is never entirely good. You know, someone's good, but a little passionate sometimes. Good, but a little stupid sometimes. Good, but. So the goodness is sort of compromised goodness, not entirely pure. And because that's the nature of material existence, nothing is entirely pure. So that's goodness. It's not badness, but it's not perfect goodness. No one is perfectly good. But beyond goodness is what's called pure goodness. In Sanskrit, it's Shuddha and Vishuddha. Vishuddha means really good, absolutely good. Goodness untainted by passion or ignorance. And that's the real nature of every living being, to be situated in pure goodness. That's the nature of the Atma, the nature of pure consciousness, to be completely good. To be completely good, absolutely good. And yes, the possibilities are beyond the limitations of this world. Does that answer your question, or did you want more in one direction or another?
Yeah, well, my angle was from sort of this, us, this kind of civilian point of view. How do I decide a good action,
How do you decide a good action
a bad action?
or a bad action?
Range action. And how do I know after doing it?
How do we decide, and how do we know whether it was good, bad, or somewhere in between?
For normal civilians, yes.
In normal civilians, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah, with the ordinary citizen, how do we know whether what we just did was good or bad, or what we're about to do is good or bad? Well, therefore we have sages, don't we? In every tradition, there's those who are considered wise, those who give guidance from having greater clarity of vision. Even in ordinary activities, I don't really know what to do, so I ask my teacher, I ask my parents, I ask Google, I ask someone who knows more than I do, so that I won't be acting in ignorance, or I won't be just acting out of sort of a passionate drive, but I'll be informed. So that helps us to move toward goodness. The sages are themselves persons who are good by nature. They're free from, they're not passion's slaves, they're not in ignorance. And then in the going higher, we look for those who are in absolute goodness or pure goodness. And finally, those who are connected in service to the absolute. The any activities performed for our own interest will finally only be relatively good, which also means relatively not so good. Good, but could be better. But when we switch, when we switch our activities, reroute our activities towards service to divinity, towards service to Krishna, then those activities rise above the material platform. That's when whatever we do will be on a higher level. Is that okay?
Thank you.
Okay. This is available even to citizens. One doesn't have to be a great yogi or a great, performer who live in the Himalayas and, wearing rags and so on. Bhakti Yoga makes this possible. Yes? Oh, there's a question in the back.
What are everyday steps one can take to achieve pure goodness?
I heard the last part, to achieve.
What are everyday steps people can
What
take?
are
to
everyday
achieve-
steps that we can do to achieve pure goodness? Step one, chant this Hare Krishna mantra. That's the transformative method. I'm not going to say, leave home, quit your job, don't drive a car anymore. Chant this Hare Krishna mantra, because that transforms our consciousness. The sound is on the platform of pure consciousness. And when we just hear and chant, our consciousness is now connected with that transcendental platform. Simple thing. And anyone can do this anywhere in the country and time of day. That's the simple practice that will enable us to achieve that transformative position. Okay. Yes?
Again, thank you for being here to share your wisdom with us. You've been in your body for a fair number of years, I think it's fair to say.
Too long.
And you would have seen society changing. Where do you think we are at the moment? Do you feel that we're just trapped more than ever in society's demands and expectations? Have the goodness, as nature, the materialistic world, really got a hold of us more so than at any other time in your experience?
I've been around in this body for 70 some odd years. Would I say that the material forces have got greater control over us now than they did at any other time? That's your, yeah. Of course, it's hard to gauge, from one point of view, I'd say same old. People were foolish in the 1960s in one way, they're foolish, and they were foolish in the 1980s another way, they're foolish now and still another way. So it's really the same old. We're still thinking we're the body, we're still thinking that we can somehow get the better of the forces of nature and achieve the unachievable. We still haven't fixed the problems of birth, old age, disease, or death, and we're still neglectful of spiritual realization as a civilization, as a society. So from that point of view, we'd say, not much difference. From another point of view, I would say it's getting worse. Why should things stand still? Things get the more we advance, the more we're becoming implicated in the complexities of nature. the more we try to control, the more we end up controlled. Yeah, simple example, you know, when I was a little kid, scientists didn't have to think of how to dispose of nuclear waste. Now they don't know what in the world to do with it. I had a friend who had a grant from the United States government. He was a grad student at MIT, and it was just, his thesis had to do with the various possible ways that atomic waste could be disposed of. There's put in vats, which corrode, put it in glass, encase it in glass. This, that, the other thing. And it finally was concluded that it would take like 40 years just to sketch out all the alternatives and the pros and cons of them. The Soviet Union had a good idea, just dump it all in Kazakhstan. So we advanced, we have this marvelously efficient way of getting more and more energy, and yet it presents us with these incredible problems. I have one of my students is married to a woman who works for the Environmental Protection Agency, the American Environmental Protection Agency. And her particular project that she was working on last time I spoke with her was microplastics. Are you familiar with microplastics? Yeah, generally are. Some are, some aren't. Plastic which is found in particles so fine that you can't manage them. If I have a piece of plastic here, I can dispose of it in some sensible way or do something with it. But microplastics, they're like, in your cells, they're so small. And the problem is that microplastics are now everywhere. They're in the oceans, they're in the atmosphere, they're in the rainforests, they're in everything you eat, they're everywhere. Everywhere. This is not, my doomsday. See a lady, that's what she tells me from her data at the Environmental Protection Agency. They're trying to figure out what to do. And it's a known issue. I'm not disclosing something top secret. Some of you already are familiar with this. It's the latest, or one of the latest problems. What do? We've created all this plastic. It's so great, cheap, good, strong. Everything's made of it. But then it pervades everything in microscopic form and creates who knows what kind of health issues for every living form of life and so on. So another example of how we control nature, but instead find that we're making things worse, we're digging ourselves in deeper. So that kind of problem, and how many hours do you have? We can start at the political ones, the social ones, the scientific ones, the various kinds of economic exploitation that have been, that people have come up with. Yeah, interesting, but we won't go into it, sorry, no time. There's, in every front, the more we advance, the deeper in we dig ourselves. So, in any case, wherever we are, we can rise to the transcendental platform. We can go above the whole mess. And the key is this Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Ram. Not just a kind of happy entertainment. Mantra has real potency. I'm looking at a clock tells me that what they told me is our time limit has been reached. Shall we honor the time limit?
We can have at least one more question.
At least one more question. Okay.
Why do you think there has been a decline in, just a general decline in faith, especially young people below 30? More and more people, and I say this coming from India and now here as well, just not being able to believe in anything. Why is this?
I don't see that at all. I think people believe in all sorts of things, just the
Oh,
wrong
right.
things.
Yeah.
You know, faith. I don't, the heck with faith. But then they have faith in so many things. They have faith in artificial intelligence. They have faith in their girlfriend. They have faith in, and that's stated in the Bhagavad Gita that everyone has faith. But do we put faith in objects of goodness? Do we put faith in passion? Is our faith in ignorance? A person in ignorance has faith in his booze, This is going to make me happy. He has faith. Everyone has faith. But the faith is placed in material things, and therefore will be disappointed, guaranteed. When faith is transferred to the spiritual platform, and when faith is, what's the word? I don't want to say bolstered by, when it's linked with genuine knowledge, then it has strength. A lot of spirituality is given up because it's so cotton candy and so fluffy. It doesn't have substance, dreamy and wishful. But so then people look at that and say, or it just consists of sorts of old rituals and things that we do because our grandmother did them, and there's no philosophical backing for it. And so the faith, how do you maintain faith under such circumstances? Why should you? But when there's faith which proceeds from knowledge, then that faith will be very strong and well placed. That was one. Okay, at least one. That means two is okay. Yes.
I just one question is about mental health, and we know that it's something that is there, especially after coronavirus. We are more aware that we all go through moments of
Someone's going to relay this because your voice is softer and
about mental health. Have you struggled with your own mental health during your life?
people
Finding
struggle with their health during their life. Mental health, okay.
Depression, hunger, sadness,
Anger,
getting
sadness,
that you're a
depression.
failure, getting isolated from everyone, feeling that everyone is better than you,
Yes.
getting triggered by the smallest things, and having like in your life moments where you can connect, you can clear all of these things and feel that goodness and feel that ability to connect with something higher and feeling that you're doing something good to yourself, people around you, and then back again in that kind of vortex. When it's happening again that you're falling down into those negative emotions.
Yeah, we go up and then we come down and fall into negative emotions, yes.
So what's
What
the
to
way
do?
to go back again in the right direction or
How do we
emotions?
go in the right direction? You might guess
What's
that,
the solution basically? That's the
what
thing,
solution?
because If you're trying to find the solution to all your life and you somehow get back into that kind of loop, is very, very, very strong. It's very make you feel like you don't have hope somehow.
We get depressed, we get sad, we get confused, we get suicidal, we get we get tense and anxious, we get angry. So what to do? Again, the Bhagavad Gita would say, well, in the mode of ignorance, you'll get madness. People who are just stark raving mad are in the mode of ignorance. And the more we're affected by ignorance, the more our minds will be distorted. The various drugs and chemicals and so on lead toward ignorance, and therefore they create mental confusion. But passion and activity also leads to all this drama, you know. Passion is full of drama. Yes, oh no. We want something, and then we get it, and then it all falls apart. I love her so much, and she's rejected me. I want to kill myself, and so on and so on. Passion is full of, passion is bad for your mental health. Goodness is better. When we're in goodness, we're calm, we're steady, we're free from the ups and downs. And better than goodness is pure goodness. In practical terms, please just take this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My spiritual master used to say that it cleanses the dust from the mirror of the mind. These mental disturbances, agonies, and so on, all come from dust on the mirror of the mind. So when we clean the mirror, when we clean away the dust, then the mind will be fine. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Shall we stop here? Yes, I'm getting the nod. Thank you all very much.
Big thank you to Jayadvaita Swami for joining us. We're always very happy to have you. Next part of the evening is dinner. So in a second we'll invite you all to come upstairs and join us for a nice meal. In the meantime, I believe I've been told that Jayadvaita Swami will be available for questions. He's got some books. He's got a lovely book called Vanity Karma, which is at a table just back there. I believe some quotes were given from the book this evening. So please, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to approach Jayadvaita Swami. You can buy a book. You can have a look inside the book.
And where should I be? Upstairs or downstairs?
We've got a table over here with some books. We can move it upstairs or we can have it here, whatever.
I don't live here. You tell me.
Downstairs works for us.
Downstairs works. Okay, I'll be down.